We're so very pleased you can join us for part 2 of Remember Palestine. My name is, of course, Amina Taylor, and this is the edition of the show where we discuss the possibility of a third intifada. And if you listen to Lenin, he says it's impossible to predict the time and progress of revolution. It's governed more or less by its own mysterious laws. Well, on that note, I'd like to introduce you to he's the star of the second hour, really, isn't he? He's a man who's been active in Palestinian issues for so many years. He's had meetings with the former PLO chair, Mr. Yasser Arafat, and campaigned for the political rights of Palestinians. He's the author of several books, including parts 1 and 2 of Zionism, the Real Enemy of the Jews. Alan Hart. Finally, they put us together. How are you today?
I mean, it's great to be here. Can I just make a comment on the title of your programme, Remember Palestine? It's so important because a great truth can be summarised as this. Palestine was supposed to have been forgotten. When that file was closed in 1948, it was supposed to have remained closed. It was not only the Zionists and all the major powers that wanted it closed, so did the Arab regimes of the day. It was not supposed to be reopened. The Palestinians were supposed to have been the sacrificial lamb on the altar of political expediency. And then along came Yasser Arafat and forced the Palestine file to be reopened. And that's his real crime. That's why he was demonized.
Yes.
And then because of the incredible, almost superhuman steadfastness of the Palestinians, that file can never again be closed, unless the Israelis resort to a final round of ethnic cleansing. And quite frankly, I do not rule that out.
And of course, you speak with great authority on this. We were just talking a little bit just before we came on, and the amount of time you spent with former President Arafat, the things you must know, Alan Hart.
Well, I've been engaged with this conflict in various ways for 40 years. As a very young correspondent for ITN and BBC Panorama, as a secret negotiator in secret peace talks, and with both sides. I mean, I was friendly with both Arafat, Father Palestine, and Golda Meir, Mother Israel. On the human level, I was friendly. But there is something that terrifies me today. Much though everything must be done to help the Palestinians maintain their steadfastness, the battle isn't going to be won or lost in Palestine. It's actually going to be won or lost in America. And I'm about actually to go and lecture and debate in America, because the only person in the world with leverage on Israel is the President of America.
Yes, and some say he's been a sad disappointment so far.
I think Obama meant well, means well, but I think he came into office too inexperienced and somewhat naive. And until his backside hit the Oval Office chair, I think he had no idea of how the Zionist lobby and its stooges in Congress control Middle East policy.
Well, Alan Hart is going to be here with us because, just a little pause on that, because some of you may know that April marks the anniversary of the Jenin massacre, where the Israeli military forces raided the Jenin military camp. And on Sharon's order, Palestinians were killed, hundreds wounded, and almost a decade on, Sari El-Khalili went out to speak to some of the residents of Jenin's refugee camps for their recollections.
It's the 8th anniversary of the Jenin refugee camp massacre, and the smell of death and horror still hangs in the air. On the 3rd of April 2002, Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon ordered his troops to destroy and even erase Jenin camp from the map. He believed it served as a launch site for numerous attacks against Israeli targets. In the massive military operation, which lasted for about 13 days, 58 Palestinians, including many women and children, lost their lives. 23 Israeli soldiers were also killed in clashes with the camp's fighters. At least 100 buildings were damaged. remembers every single detail of that massacre. She says she used to provide the Palestinian fighters with food and shelter, while Sharon cut off water and electricity supply from the camp.
I remember when the soldiers were not able to move because of our strong resistance. They used to lock tens of people in one room and then make holes in the building to go to the next one. They even used us as human shields.
To ensure that they inflicted maximum damage and casualties on the camp residents, the Israeli troops used various types of weapons and tactics at their disposal.
Here I found a 70-year-old man. He was burnt inside his house. There I found Yusra's body. She had a mental disorder and she couldn't get out before they blew up her house.
Suleiman told us his story too. He suffers from nerve disorder caused by an attack by Israeli soldiers during the first Intifada. To make the matter worse, he was shot in the back during the camp invasion.
The soldiers got really mad at me when I told them that I don't know where the fighters were. One of them took me aside and shot me in the back. My right leg is paralyzed now.
More than 2,000 people were forced to flee for their lives from the camp.
So far, the Israeli government refuses to recognize what happened in Jenin as massacre. It has also rejected all international calls to investigate the incident.
Right after the operation, the UN Security Council formed a committee to investigate the massacre, but the Israeli government refused to cooperate with the committee. It was dissolved before starting its work. Sari Al-Khalili reporting for Press TV's Remember Palestine show, Jenin's refugee camp.
And the author Alan Hart is still with me in the studios. And I saw you nodding furiously there at some parts of this, Alan. Do you have any recollections of this yourself?
No, but more importantly, what it prompts in my mind is the reason why really I am so passionate in support of the Palestinian cause. If there is one people on earth that ought to have been dehumanized by what has happened to them, it is the Palestinians. They have not been dehumanized. If you and I were there today and an Israeli bulldozer came and took down their house, they'd pick themselves up, find the kettle and say, "Do you want a cup of tea?" The point is, they have not been dehumanized, but their oppressors, the Israelis, have been dehumanized by what they've done to the Palestinians. I mean, that's the comment that triggers in me.
And of course, you know, I know you were a working journalist at the point of the first and second Intifada. Is a third Intifada something you would welcome?
No, I wouldn't welcome it for this reason. I said to you earlier that I fear there may be a final ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. I mean, Netanyahu and the lunatic right wing still hope that they can so defeat and break the Palestinians that they will offer them a few crumbs that they can accept. When that doesn't happen, I think the Israelis will invent a pretext to drive the Palestinians off the West Bank and into Jordan or wherever, hence the final ethnic cleansing. And what I fear about a third Intifada, if it happens, it could actually play into Israel's hands.
So whatever the manifestation, even non-violence, poetry, art, boycotting and divestment and sanctions, this would be a pretext? This could be all the reason?
No, they couldn't be pretext. All those things are necessary.
Yes.
But I'm saying a new resort to violence, and one could understand if there was a new resort to violence. But if there was, I'm just saying, I mean, that I think it could give the Israelis the pretext that they want, and will probably do in 2 or 3 years anyway, for a final ethnic cleansing. It really is very tragic. And I tell you, when I was writing my book, there was a moment when I found myself saying to my readers, I wanted to cry out with the pain of knowing how much Israeli Jews have been deceived by their own leaders about this conflict.
How so?
Well, there are two great lies of all. I'll summarize them very quickly. The Western world has been conditioned to believe that poor little Israel has lived in constant danger of annihilation. the driving into the sea of its tubes. That has never, ever been true. The second great lie the Western world has been conditioned to believe is Israel has had no partner for peace. That is also a big fat lie. Going even before Arafat. Arafat had prepared the ground by the end of 1979. He persuaded the PLO and the PNC to back his policy of politics and compromise. So as of 1979, he was ready for peace on terms which any rational government and people in Israel would have accepted. So, I mean, there's a whole history of the Arabs being ready, even Nasser, going back to 1951. From the moment Nasser came to power, he wanted an accommodation with Egypt. He was reaching for it. He even had secret talks with the man who was Israel's foreign minister at the time, Moshe Sharett.
And still nothing.
And still nothing. But the whole edifice of the Zionist story, it's a lie from beginning to end. And that's the point of my book. It's more than its title suggests, Zionism, the real enemy of the Jews. It is a journey through the lives and history of the entire conflict.
Stay there with us, Alan, because Nada's waiting in the wings and she's going to tell us what she has in store for this week's YouTube clip.
Thank you, Amina. And yes, it is time now for our YouTube feature. Now, the video I'm about to show you today is of Israeli police raiding Palestinian homes. This incident took place in the south of Hebron in the occupied West Bank. Now, though the Israeli police claimed that they suspected the presence of weapons and stolen sheep, they in fact found nothing of such nature. The families filmed in this clip expressed their anguish and distress at what happened, and the disruption that it caused, well, it's clearly obvious. So let's zoom in and have a look.
First of March, there are 2 police vehicles in Tuba village. There is 1 police van outside the village.
One time.
Okay.
This is now in operation of the Israeli police.
31st of March, tent of Ibrahim Abu-Jandia that's been completely upended by the police. In the kitchen of Ibrahim Abu-Jandia. Plates, knives, forks, blankets, mattresses, screws, everything upturned. Another compartment from the Ibrahim Abu-Jandia family, which has stored the butter and the yogurt, all upturned. Bags and boxes. Kill Omar Abu-Jandia. Police came and overturned all the mattresses and pillows and told Zahri that they were looking for guns in the house.
اجوا فعسوا العفش والخربي وكل العفش اللي في البيت نعفوه. هم بيحكوا لي قال بدور على معزة مسروقات من المستوطنين. وانا حكيت لهم قلت لهم المعزة جاية تحت في العفش بتفعسوا فيه.
غنم مصاري بارود سلاح ما نعرف شو مسروق لهم مش واجوا كبسوا منتشر يعني شفت بعينك فيها كل شيء.
سألوني قال في عن زين للمستوطنين مسروقات قلت شو انا بعرفني انا بنطر حالي ما بنطر ناس ثانيين او ناس من برا ما بعرف. قال بيقولوا لهم الأثر بيجي على منطقة طوبة.
I will say it one time.
Okay.
This is now in operation of the Israeli police.
خشت تحت العفش يجوا فتشوا العفش وفتشوا أغراض النوم كلهن العفش الجنابي اللحفي كله حطوه على الأرض. عطلونا عن شغلنا وصلبونا وأخذوا البنات حطوهم في بيت احتجزوهن. مشكلة كبيرة اليوم.
ليش انت مسوي شجر وليش انت عامل مغر هان نطران وزيتون عن تحتين. كل الارض هذه ملكك كلها ملك.
I'm sure you'll agree that this is a very distressing and disturbing video. Unfortunately, many Palestinians have to endure such, pain and such agonies on a day-to-day basis. Now, remember, if you've come across a YouTube clip yourself or something that you've personally uploaded, then why not tell us about it? This is the chance for you to get involved. Email us at rp@presstv.co.uk, or alternatively, you can comment and tell us all about it on our Facebook page, which is Remember Palestine. For now, that's all from me, and back to you in the studio, Amina.
You almost caught us mid-conversation here. Thank you very much for that, Nada, because whenever Alan Hart sits down, you've got to pay attention. You really do. There were so many things there, Alan, that we were talking about in the break that I can't even begin to share with the viewer. But the last thing you mentioned there was this idea of Nakba denial. That reached out to me. I was quite shocked, actually.
Well, yes, we were talking about my despair that most Jews of the world don't want to know the truth of history. And my feeling is that Nakba denial, the denial by supporters of Israel, right or wrong, whether they're Jews or not, of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, not only the original, but one can say the ongoing. Nakba denial, in my view, is every bit as evil, and I repeat, evil, as the denial of the Nazi Holocaust. And I think that's a point that can't be stressed often enough. But I tell you what really makes me sad. I know both Palestinians and Israeli Jews and Jews well. And I would make this statement. Generally speaking, the Jews are the intellectual elite of the Western civilization. Generally speaking, the Palestinians, by far, are the intellectual elite of the Arab world. Together in peace and partnership, what those two peoples could do is the stuff that dreams are made of. They could change the region for the better and give new hope and inspiration to the whole world. But it isn't going to happen because Zionism isn't changing. Zionism is today what it always was. It wants the maximum amount of land with the minimum number of Arabs on it.
And very quickly, Alan, before we go, how do we get the book?
It's on Amazon. The original UK edition is running out. It's now being published in America in 3 volumes.
Yes. And read it.
Yeah,
wouldn't that be your
because you
final
can
word?
start
Get
out
it.
knowing nothing about this conflict, which is most Westerners. And I just take you through the whole story from the beginning right up to President Obama's most recent surrender to the Zionist lobby. And the key thing is I've given the events in the region, which is why it's such a big book, their global context. So I take my readers behind closed doors in London, Washington, Paris. So if you read this book, and it's easy to read, it's told in my television reporting conversational style, you can see how all the pieces fit together. And I tell you one other thing. After I wrote my Arafat book, when I was lecturing and debating in America, lots of American Palestinians said to me, Alan, we have learned so much. We're reading a few pages each night to our children.
And that's what we've done today, Alan. Learned so much. Thank you so much. And the next slideshow, well, we see the work of an exceptionally talented freelance photographer. Her name is Anne Pack, and in an arresting collection of images entitled Jerusalem Dispossessed. And after, we'll find out exactly what freelance photography is. And the artist herself joins us down the line from Bethlehem. Anne Pack, thank you so much for taking time out. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
We just wanted to find out, what is this free lens photography? I was trying to get my head around it.
Well, if you are freelance photographers, you want to remain independent, and I think it's mostly to, like, you have to differentiate between freelance photographers and photographers who are part of agencies and who have a different agendas than mine.
What are you trying to say with your images?
What I try to say basically is that in this conflict there's a lot of photographers and media involved. I still feel that a lot of pictures are actually missing, that a lot of the reality is not well represented in the mainstream media. So basically it's to tell more about what's really going on the ground. This is what I try to do, and try to make people understand what does it mean for Palestinians to live under military occupation, because I think it's very hard to actually understand it.
Anne Pack, we value your work and your time. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Well, this is now your opportunity to get involved with this program. RP is the only regular platform where artists, activists, all those supporting the Palestinian cause can share their work. If you're part of a relevant organization, or if you're an artist yourself whose work reflects some of the aspects of the Palestinian experience, get in touch. Nada tells us how.
This is the chance for you to get involved. If you are working on an artistic project based on Palestine and wish to advertise your work, we are giving you the platform to do so. Whether you are after a sponsor or looking to promote your work, we want to hear from you. All you need to do is email us at rp@presstv.co.uk and provide us with as much detail as possible regarding your proposal. Please don't forget to put your contact information as well. You may be the one joining us in the studio in next week's show.
Drum roll, please, because our artist in residence, Zuhaib, is finished. What's today's work, sir?
Hi. Yeah, it's a illustration of Intifada through creativity. Her arm just turns into a paintbrush as she slingshots her kind of creativity at the forces that are against her.
Well, we're very glad you managed to finish this one today. Just sign it off for us as we say goodbye. And of course, Zuhaib is back next week with more art, dropping creativity and nothing else. Well, that is all for this week's show. Remember, by uniting we stand and by dividing we fall. That was John Dickinson. And from all my guests, especially the wonderful Alan Hart for this half, I've been Amina Taylor. All our other guests and our crew, take care.